Going to Thank you. I am the course creator for the Corporate Sustainability Leadership Accelerator, and today I'm going to be walking you through um, just some tips and tricks I want to share with you what it's like to launch your career in corporate sustainability. I'm joined today by my very good friend, also a doctor, Dr. Merrin Pearse. He's based in New Zealand, and I'm based in Boston, so we've got 16 hours covered. Um, and Marin, am I right? Is it morning your time? Is it crazy? It's
Yep,
morning your
welcome to
time.
Tuesday, everyone. I'm already there.
He'll tell you what the future is like. Um, so Marin is my co-instructor for the accelerator, and we have, I think, over 50 years combined experience. We're working in the field of corporate sustainability. For myself, I've worked in the field for over 25 years around the world. I started my career in Washington, D.C., then moved to Hong Kong, spent majority of my career as a sustainability person in Hong Kong, and then moved to the United States and have been working in the US for several years. I've also worked in Europe as well. So for those, I would be super surprised if you have anyone from the EU right now, but if you are, oh my goodness, you deserve a prize. It is probably like what, maybe like evening your time, like 12 midnight.
There's someone
Um,
from Hong Kong, Janice. They're crazier than I
Oh my
am.
goodness. Okay, the prize goes to the one in Hong Kong because that's like 3 a.m. their time right now. But yeah, so if you have any, so I have global experience. Marin has helped in the well, Marin has been my consultant. So every time I've moved to another role, he's someone I speak to when I'm like, hey, help me with this packaging issue. So he has global experience as well. So that is me. And if you have any questions, you can drop it on the chat. I'm going to go through my deck. Um, if you can hold off your questions until I finish, because I only have like 5 slides and I want to spend most of the time answering any questions you have about what it's like to break into the corporate sustainability career. Wow. Okay. Um, Good. Yeah, let's start. So, ooh, I'm going to every time someone asks me what it's like to break into the corporate sustainability field, I often share this quote. This is from Audemars Piguet, the founder of a watch company, I'd say luxury watch company, I believe in Switzerland. But really love this quote. To break the rules, you must first master them. And I use this quote because a lot of people who want to get into the field of corporate sustainability want to do it from a purposeful and intentional point of view. They want to have a purposeful career and they want to do something that makes a difference in this world. And I applaud you for that. I do want to warn you. See me and maybe Marin as fellow travelers in the path. We just came from Italy. We coming back and we're warning you, or at least giving you recommendations of which restaurants to eat in, stay away from that hotel, stay away from that street, or basically just kind of give you tips and tricks on how to have a great career journey. So a lot of people who want, as I said, a lot of people who want to get in corporate sustainability want to make a difference. Majority of them do. And for them, a lot of making a difference means I want to break the rules. And I'm like, great, but whoa, 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 whoa. You must first know what the rules are before you break them. And this is why so how are you going to learn the rules? Well, the first thing I want to say is just, um, I want to define what is corporate sustainability. And the corporate is really the operative term here. If we just look at the word sustainability or sustainable development, and we use the most widely accepted definition, which is under the 1992 Brundtland Commission. Do not worry, there won't be a quiz, but that is the definition we use for most professionals who work in this industry. We refer to sustainable development as development that does not impinge on the needs of future generations while addressing current generations' needs. So it's really looking at what are the current generations' needs. Let's address that, but without having to add to the cost of taking away from the needs of future generations. So there's almost like a condition, right? Like, yes, we need to address the current needs of today. But let's not do that at the expense of future generations' needs. And it's the let's not do that at the expense of next generation's needs is sort of the it's that that's where the tension comes in because corporate, when you think about when you think about the word corporate, corporate is like corporation, business, capitalism. All of these words connote short-term mindedness, right? Like if you're a publicly listed company, most in most listing um most companies in the world are required to report their quarterly earnings, meaning every 3 months they have to report like how much sales they made. And it's very short term because shareholders want to know, did you make money during that quarter? And what are you going to do if you didn't make money that quarter? And so it's very reactive, right? But sustainability requires you to think about the long term. And sometimes that long term is not just a quarter. It could even be several quarters. It could be several years, right? When you're making decisions about sustainable packaging, you're making decisions about renewable energy installations, you're not thinking in 3 years' time, you're thinking 15 years out. And so already, when you think about sustainability and you think about corporate, they sometimes don't align in terms of their timeline. And that is where the greatest tension lies when you want to move into the field of sustainability. Personally, that is one of my that's the tension I've had to live with for the whole of my career. Most of the questions I get asked is, have I ever felt like I had to choose between my principles and my beliefs in order to meet business targets? And the reality is, yes, because you are working in a company, in a corporation that has shareholder interests in mind, and then you're asking the company to make sustainability decisions, which are not always aligned with the company expectations, like company shareholders' expectations. There will always be some level of misalignment and tension. And in a way, that is the rule you're going to have to break. But in order to break that rule, you must first accept that rule. You can't go in a business and be like, no, we should not make our company shareholders happy. You can't do that. If you are the kind of person who cannot live with that answer, that's okay. Corporate sustainability is just not the right field for you. I just want people to understand that that is the biggest tension you're going to face when you're working in the field of corporate sustainability. And that's what I mean earlier when I said, let me just go back. To break the rules, you must first master them. And so, what are we going to master? We're going to master how companies make decisions. So they make decisions based on business case, ROI. They have to make, like, why am I going to spend money on this? Why am I going to invest money on X? Because remember, that money, especially if you're a publicly listed company, that money is not owned by the company itself. It's actually owned by your shareholders. And it is the fiduciary duty of the company to defend every dollar it invests, including on sustainability issues. And so if you learn how to like start um, persuading and influencing the people in your company that the sustainability initiatives that you want to implement are actually good for the company through an ROI exercise, a cost benefit exercise, then you're mastering the rules, right? And eventually you can break the rules. So that is the first thing I usually like to share when I'm talking about breaking into the field of corporate sustainability. Um, you need just to accept that that's the biggest tension of all. I would also say, and Merrin, I might ask you to jump in because I can see you nodding. But before I hand it to you, I would say this is because I often get asked about like how do you live with this tension, right? Like how do you it's not it's a tension that I find extremely challenging, but also professionally fulfilling when I'm able to overcome that particular challenge. And it's it's something that you will always just have to deal with until we change or redefine capitalism. This is what we're going to have to deal with. if you're going to be working in a corporate sustainability team. I'm going to pause here because I can see, Merrin, you're nodding. Do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, and just re-emphasizing, oh, excuse me, folks, re-emphasizing that point. Maybe Janice said it in a harsh way, but it's a good way. Is like, if it's this is not for you, corporate sustainability. That enthusiasm to do the right things and the bits as you believe in. How do I get around that? Well, my background, I've worked as a land surveyor with an engineering firm, so in corporate from that construction side. I've worked in government, so that's the policy side of it, but I've also worked in NGOs, where that is where you become the annoying kid almost as the pester factor to both government and corporates to say, we need to change this. These are the reasons. So they're the nudges to get the support going. So it's a bit like that chance for me when I'm working in corporate. I'm going, damn, I really dislike this part, but I realize I'm in the corporate world. There's a role that that business is playing. To get that energy of that frustration out, that's where I use my volunteering in the NGO space to go and allow my uh, desires to have things done differently to support the NGOs in their what I'm calling pestering for their idea generation and their guardrail setting for businesses to remind them that you've got social and environmental issues to consider here alongside being a profitable business. So I use those three different hats when I'm thinking about the corporate response. Is like, how's the government going to have policy and regulation? How are the NGOs going to react to this? And then you're back to the corporate side of saying, well, how are my shareholders going to enjoy getting a profit and a return and keep our stakeholders happy?
Yeah. Thanks, Merrin. I could already see people's comments. And I hope I wasn't being provocative. I just wanted to be really honest about the challenges. I didn't want to be this Pollyanna, like, you're gonna make a difference. Like, I really want you to understand that it's tough.
And Janice, I think if you put anyone in the business, as you know, everyone in different sectors is going to be trying to pull business in a different direction to make this. So this is not unusual. It's just that you, as a corporate sustainability person, are probably having to understand all of those different drivers that they're thinking behind and trying to work out what's the sustainability angle that can help them promote it or tell them the problem with what they're producing or suggesting. So it is a real balancing act as that sustainability lead or team role that you're playing, because you're going to get questions from every side of the business.
Right. So having said that, I was also just say capitalism and isms, all the isms, they're human-made concepts. We created that. How we define stuff in the dictionary, that's us. We create, meaning when I say us, it's society who's created that concept. So we can also redefine that concept. I just want to say it may feel we might feel a bit powerless, like, oh, but we're not the 1%, we're the 99. I completely get that. I just want to also say that that is, and that's also was my PhD dissertation. Anyway, that's a separate thing. So, um, anyway, so I wanted to just say that, and I also just wanted to say, the one thing I also wanted to say until I wanted to move on to my next point was, if you're gonna change needs to happen, right? So if change didn't need to happen, then we wouldn't have to deal with the capitalism, all of that. But the fact that because it needs to be changed, that's why we have these people who are interested in creating this change. So I applaud each and every one of you. I'm not trying to, hopefully I'm not coming off as like, don't do this. I just want you to come in without rose-colored lenses. Because if you're really going to make a difference in this industry, know what are the problems we're trying to solve, because I don't want you to feel burned out. There's a lot of people in this field have felt so burned out, um, almost feeling like Sisyphus. And I'm not sure if you know that story. He was trying to, I don't know if it's a Greek story. It's this guy who's trying to push this boulder up a hill, and gravity, obviously, the boulder keeps going down. And then that's how it feels sometimes to be like a corporate sustainability person, because there's this tension, right? Short term, short-term profits, but at the same time, sustainability is asking you to think about the long term. Okay, so we're gonna pin that. I'm gonna unpin that later, but gonna pin it here. We can talk about that later in a bit. So, when I first started talking about this, when I first joined the field of sustainability, it wasn't really the popular thing. Nobody could even figure out what it meant. I couldn't even explain to my parents what it was. Even to my now spouse, then boyfriend, what in the world was I doing? What is this job I was doing? I couldn't even explain to anyone. That's changed now. I think I can kind of explain to people what I do. I still get the what does that mean? But when I explain to them, I deal with environmental initiatives. I explain to them exactly what I do. There's a bit more like, oh, I think I'm understanding what you do in a company. What I have seen, and I'm just gonna pause here to say this a bit of a disclaimer. I'm talking about the past 5 years, okay, not just this year. So, and I'm talking globally. So we have seen an increase of sustainability roles in the past, I would say 2 or 3 years. I've never seen so much interest in someone hiring for a sustainability person in my whole 25-year career. Having said that, I am not going to deny that, of course, there has been a huge change this year given the new US administration. That is a given. It's unique to the US. I am seeing an increase still in Asia. There's still an increase in sustainability roles in Asia and the EU. Particularly in Asia, as I said, I pretty much spent most of my career in Asia. I worked in Hong Kong for around 15 or that 25 years. So there's still a lot lot more roles than there used to be. Okay. So, oh, Ian, I love what you said. I think we all want to be optimistic. However, we need to be realistic with the way the world actually moves and works. Let's be realistically optimistic. I think that's the right way of putting it. Um, because if we are, then we know what our roadmap could be, right? What is our battle plan? If we don't if we I'm the kind of person who's like, okay, I'm going to accept the world as it is today. I don't agree with it, but I want to make it a world, a better, more progressive world, but it's not there yet. But I'm going to accept where the world is now, and because if I accept where it is now, then I can figure out what the real gap is between the ideal world and where the world is now. And then you can create that roadmap. Okay. Anyway, I'll pin that again. Yes, Marin.
Just looking at some of the comments there in one little chat we had there. Also want to point out that sustainability to us, when you start hanging out with sustainability people, covers the ESG plus more, so the environmental, the social, and the governance. Often often in the media, it feels to me like sustainability is more the green tree hugger side, the environmental side. So this is focusing across all of those aspects. And so at any stage you're in the conversation, you think, hang on, we're missing one of those other bits. Make sure you have that reminder. There's social impact, there's environmental impact, and then how are you running your business governance. So hopefully that clarifies a few of the comments in the chat as well.
Thank you. So I'm going to move you through my framework for how you could launch your career in corporate sustainability. And I often use this pyramid framework. Let's start at the base of the pyramid. The very first is have some level of skill and knowledge. And I broke it down into three. One is essential, technical, and industry skills. Let's start with the essential skills. Essential skills are things that most likely you already have. Communication skills, analytical thinking, project management. You don't necessarily need to obtain these skills from working in a corporate sustainability job. You probably already have it. If you're transitioning, even if you're a new college graduate, you likely have some level of essential skill sets. Identify what those are. Second, the technical skills. That one is a little bit, that one requires perhaps some additional training. In the past, when I first joined corporate sustainability, I'm an environmental scientist by background. So I already had at least some idea of how to do environmental impact assessments, how to do monitoring, how to do carbon accounting. That was already taught when I went to college. But for a lot of people who joined sustainability way back, and I think this might also be you, Marin, um, a STEM educate like an engineering background was enough, right? You didn't actually need to know like what was the standard for carbon accounting, what is the report. You didn't. Now it helps to have that level of skill set because you are competing with other people who have that skill set as well. So I would just say a technical building your technical toolbox is going to be key. I'll talk a bit about the technical toolbox in the next slide. But it's things like reporting, it's things like how to do carbon accounting, how to do life cycle analysis, blah, blah, blah. And then the last of that base pyramid is industry knowledge. And industry knowledge is, do you have some idea at least of what the regulations are? For example, do you know what CSRD means? Do you know what CSRD, all these other alphabet soup regulations, what do they mean? You must have some idea at least of what it means because you are going to compete with people who do. So just knowing a bit more about what these are, the lingo that we use, for example, the difference between ESG, sustainability, CSR, what we mean by scope one against scope two against scope three, that type of terminology, you having an understanding of the differences of that terminology will help you at least break into the field. I get questions. One of the most frequently asked questions I get is like, how am I going to get an industry knowledge? How do I get industry knowledge if I've never been in the industry? One way to do that is to follow people's LinkedIn posts. I don't post as much as LinkedIn. You can follow Merrin. He posts more than I do. You could also go check out GlobeScan, BSR, this think tank, World Resources Institute, ESG Today. They're all on LinkedIn. Some have their blogs on their web pages. Go check them out. They're free. Subscribe. Subscribe to their newsletter. Some of these even have their a Substack. Subscribe to those and start reading through it. Start trying to just like, oh, okay, they're talking about HRDD. They're talking about CS triple D. Sorry, I'm throwing these acronyms, but just so that you have a bit of like, okay, I'm starting to understand the lingo. Going back to an analogy about going to Italy, I know maybe most of us, when we go to Italy, we're probably not thinking, I'm going to learn some Italian. But in this situation, it helps to learn a bit of Italian or whichever country you're going to, whether you're going to Thailand, learning a bit of Thai, going to Japan, learning a bit of Japanese, just to kind of get around. That's the same thing I'm asking you to do. Have a bit of like some knowledge because it shows your, and I know for a lot of people who want to get into the field, they're very passionate. So channel your passion into something that really will make a difference. And it will really make a difference if you can speak some of the lingo or understand some of the alphabet soup words we use in the industry. The second bit of the pyramid, which is I would call the middle part of the pyramid, is have an understanding of what companies you want to work. Who do you want to work for, right? Identify different kinds of companies. Do you want to work for a large company, a startup? So large company is a kind of company who would be willing to hire more niche type roles. So if you're like, I just want to be a carbon accountant, or I just want to write reports. I don't want to do anything else. It's much more likely that your role is going to be hired by a large company or a large consulting company, for example. A startup might or a smaller company would like someone who is the jack of all trades type situation or can do a bit more than just one skill set, more of a generalist as opposed to a niche role. Um, Also knowing whether these companies have similar values as you do. How will you know? Go check out Glassdoor, for example. You'll see, former employees, kind of even current employees providing feedback on like what kind of company this is. It'll give you at least some idea in terms of the values of the company. They may not talk so much about sustainability, but they'll talk about what these companies are like, how are they like as employers. Usually I find this is not a scientific statement. um, usually I find anecdotally that if a company is better, they treat their workers well. It's much more likely that they're a much more ethical company and likely may have some sort of sustainability program that it's not just like a greenwashing program. So just anyway, take that with a grain of salt, but definitely go check out the reputation of the company, do a bit more research. Research your company culture and values. You can go even to their websites, go check out, do they even talk about their sustainability programs? How do they talk about it, for example? At least give you some idea. the reason why this is a very important number two from a target, why is that even my number two? For a lot of people I've been mentoring who are trying to transition into sustainability, some of the reasons they say to me is like, I don't want to work for the company I work for now. I've been so burned out. They're not aligned with my values. I just don't want you going into another company that also doesn't align with your values because that's no fun either. So just make sure that if you are going to be transitioning out, and one of the reasons why you're doing that is because you're not happy with the company you work for, also just make sure that you're also not going into a company that's similar to the company you're leaving. And the way to do that is definitely to do more research. And then the last, now that you know what your skill sets are, you've identified what the gaps are in terms of your own skill set, you know, kind of have an idea what kind of company you want to work for. Um, Now you need to stand out. And this is where I'm going to say, definitely in the US, there is a lot more people out there who are looking for sustainability roles, very, very experienced. So this is the pool of people you're going to be competing with. Um, Not to say that it's impossible. It's just way more challenging if you're in the US trying to find a sustainability role. It's probably much easier if you are like in Asia, maybe in Europe, but definitely in Asia if you're trying to shift into sustainability because there's way more roles in Asia than there are in the rest of the world. Um, Showcase your passion. That's really important. For several of you, I'm not sure if several of you have already taken a course with Terra, like their hero course, which is the LFA course. And that's great. If you've done one of my courses or done other courses within Terra, that's great. Definitely showcase your passion. Tailor and highlight your relevant skills and achievements. It's your job to, to convince the hiring manager that you have the skills. And the skills don't necessarily have to just be directly about sustainability. Like, talk to them about your essential skills. Talk to them about, like, I'm a product, let's say I'm a product manager. It may not be a product manager of a sustainability product, but here are the skills I have that align with the skills you're looking for. That's your job as a job seeker, is to make that match and make that connection. I highly recommend to use the same verbs, the same terms as the company is using. So, for example, if the company is looking for a sustainability strategist and you happen to be called something else, but it's very close to the term sustainable strategist, I highly recommend using the same description as how they described it. Because you don't want to wait, you don't want the hiring manager to still try to figure out, huh, is this person fit for the role or not? You want to be like, yes, I am fit for the role. And that is your job as a job seeker to make that connection, right? Network strategically, that is huge, especially in the Terra community. I get cold messages on LinkedIn. Do that, especially if you're trying to, especially if you have an idea of what job you're interested in and you're trying to get some like, hey, I think I want to get into sustainable design and I want to get into this sustainable design firm. Who can I network with in this field? So network strategically from that point of view. I would also say from a network strategically, being the one who also receives a lot of those cold messages, simply just saying, hi, Janice, do you have 15 minutes to talk about X? That's too broad. You're actually giving me an excuse to say no. And in fact, I probably won't respond to something like that. Be very specific. What exactly do you need that 15 minutes for? Right? Like, you're trying to convince someone to give 15 minutes away of their time. Why? Right? Like, what's in it for them? And you need to turn it into like, what exactly do you need from this person? What specific thing do you need from this? Make it really specific. Make the ask specific and not like this generic, like, hey, let's just talk about careers. That's too generic. It's easier for someone to say no with that request. And then last, I would say craft a compelling resume and cover letter. People have asked me this. Are cover letters important? They are important. And do I have to personalize a cover letter? Yes, you have, unfortunately, to personalize your cover letter. Um, Please keep your cover letter not longer than maybe 3 paragraphs, not more than a page. I've seen people like dissertation level. I could tell you, no, I'm really sorry. We love your writing, but we don't have time to read them. So, hey, I might even suggest write a poem. Make it short, make it sweet, right? Like make it stand out. Because if it's so long, the reality is people are not going to read it. Keep it sweet, short, and compelling. Almost like, why you? That's really what the whole point of a resume and cover letter is, to score an interview. It's not to score a job. it's a step-by-step thing, right? In order to get a job, you need to get into an interview. So do it slowly. So if you break it down that way, it feels less daunting. You're like when you're writing your resume and your cover, you think, oh my God, this is the thing that's going to get me my job. Well, yes, but really it's the thing that's going to get you your interview. And once you get your interview, do well in the interview. That's the one that's going to get you your job. So do it step by step so it doesn't feel so daunting. And then when you write your resume and cover letter, it's way more focused, right? Like you just want to get an interview. And usually when I write my cover letter, I always end it with like looking forward to being able, almost like I'm almost saying to them, please just give me an interview. Not saying it that way, but like would love an opportunity to speak to you about my experience, something like that. And it's actionable, right? So that's my recommendation. Those are my three filters. Merrin, did you want to add anything to my three filters?
Oh no, those three filters work pretty well. I think because we're going on the assumption here, you know what your purpose is, or you've got a bit clearer on your purpose, because we're always modifying that so you can see, I'm going to be able to take this role and it's going to action. So in that space, I also heard a number of things that just are corporate in the way Janice thinks. So remember, if you're coming into the sector from a different area, it might be government or an NGO, things seem to go at a slower pace. So getting that 15 minutes of someone's chunk of time, that's a long meeting. Often you can have 5 minute chats. How can you get that point across in 5 minutes to get the meeting that you need to discuss it? So it's like the same as the cover letter. You've got to have that elevator pitch ready any time because you don't know when someone's going to walk into the room that you know as the person. So that shortness about what you're about is what I suppose changes most, I think, in corporate compared to a government and an NGO world.
I'm also going to answer Angeli's question. How do you recommend going about networking? Are there particular organizations that are helpful for finding sustainability jobs? I find soft networking much better because you're trying to build your network for later in life, right? Like later in the next 3 to 6 months or even in a year. So, because I'm based in Boston, so I do still like in person. It's just in person is just so unbeatable, quite honestly. It's very natural, very organic. I'll start with the in person. I'll talk about virtual. So in-person networking, I'm actually attending for those who are whoever is in my part of the world. There is a sustainability workshop next week, and if you happen, go check out that one. There's one at Harvard next week, so I'm going to that one. If you are, I would love to see you. And that is because why? There's wine and cheese. How can I say no? I am human. I have to eat and drink. And so I'm going there because I'm also human. I love making human connections. I love meeting people, new people. So that's what I mean by like that already, even me, like I've been in this industry for over 25 years. I still love to go to networking events because I just want to know what other people are interested in. It's not so much because of just job hunting. It's simply like I just want to know how I can help other people, or maybe they can give me ideas. You know what I mean? So it's very relaxed, very natural and organic. And in that sense, I'm very open, right? So when somebody comes up to me and be like, hey, Janice, whoever, anyway, if there's anyone from Boston, feel free to come up to me if you see me next week. Oh, this week, it's this week. There's another networking event next week. See, I go to networking events every week now. So, so that's what I mean, right? It's very, it doesn't have to be a sustainability jobs networking event. It can be something about green buildings, or it can be something about climate change, it can be something about sustainable procurement. Just go to one of those because will already meet people who have similar likes in that sense, or similar ideals, similar values, and who are very much likely are working in the field. So that would be my suggestion. That's in person. Virtual, I would say the same thing as well. If there are like webinars that you can attend, even these events, for example, I just now realized maybe we should turn the next event into like a networking event. I don't know. But like meeting people who are like-minded then helps kind of break the ice. So you're not having to figure out like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? Like, so it's anything that has to do with like a sustainability, virtual network, um, helps. I was just gonna see as well if there's anyone else.
Janice,
Yes,
did
I
you
mean
have a
somebody.
different? there's a few different questions in that in
Yes,
there. Just wondering where I missed which slide. Have we got one more slide? Or are we done on slides?
we're gonna I'm gonna
Come
go
back to the
through two
question.
more. Sorry. Yeah.
Um, just before we move off the networking, when you're talking about online, don't forget. Well, my approach is if I can have this conversation online on like LinkedIn, why do I use LinkedIn a bit more or Facebook, depending on where I'm at? If I can have someone ask me a question openly on one of those platforms and we answer it and openly, why not do it there? Because you don't know who else is going to watch and get attracted and go, oh, those guys are thinking about or talking about. So I hate it when someone sends you a direct message that there's nothing personal in it. It's quite happy to be open, and that's another way to kind of attract people in. You get other comments and ideas about the topic, you learn about it, and then you're front of mind for that topic with some other people.
Yep. Great. Thank you. I know I was the one who broke my own rule. See, I'm a rule maker. I was like, no questions. And then I suddenly opened the floor for questions. Anyway, I'm going to go through this very quickly. Some potential job opportunities in the corporate sustainability field, corporate strategy. So it's things like I've had people work in the field of corporate strategy. They're part of the strategy team, but they're doing either two things. They're embedding sustainability into the business strategy, or they're doing what I call the old school way, which is they have a separate sustainability strategy from the separate to the business strategy. That's the old school way. Most companies are now trying to embed the business sustainability piece into the business strategy. I feel that that's really the most exciting. If you're going to work in corporate strategy, that one is way more exciting. Reporting, unfortunately, yes, it is the boring reporting side. But if for all writers here, I am a writer. I actually like to write reports. I love data. So if you're one of those people who are willing, who love writing and making sense of data, this job might be for you. There's a lot of reporting rules out there, especially for those who are reporting to the EU. Although the EU has watered down its reporting requirements, there is still a reporting requirement. And in the US, several states in the US require us to still report. And in Asia, if you're listed in Singapore, Australia, and Hong Kong, I believe Japan, I'm not sure, Thailand and the Philippines, you're required to publicly report your sustainability initiatives. So there is a bit of a need for this role. Data analysis, if you're the kind of person who is really into like a analyst type of person, we collect a lot of data in the sustainability field, and now it is, so what does this all mean? And so that is what a analyst does. If you're the kind of person who likes to help with project management, like bringing a project, like redesigning a product or redesigning a packaging or creating a new sustainable product, this one might be for you. Like project management implementation. I already skipped, I'll talk about supplier engagement in a bit, but packaging design and engineering, product design and engineering. We will see, I bet you already, we will see so many, there will be a need if you're a packaging engineer or a product engineer. It's very likely that you will see a lot of changes in your industry because we are going to see a lot of US states, not at the federal level, but at the state level, requiring us to reduce the energy use of this particular product, or making a packaging more sustainable, for example. We're seeing more and more of that in the US from a state level point of view. Oregon and Colorado are the two states that have started that, and we're expecting maybe between 5 to 7 more states in the next 2 or 3 years to follow suit. But we are seeing a lot of that in Canada. This is in Canada and the EU as well. So I am anticipating the next 2 or 3 years there will be a lot of packaging redesign and product redesign from a sustainability lens. And with that, because you've redesigned your product, you want customers to know that you have an environmentally friendly, I use that in quotes because you're not really supposed to use that in claims, environmentally friendly product. And there's so much regulation on the claims you're making on environmental benefit on your product. If you're a marketer and you want to be like, you know what, I want to move into sustainable marketing, there's actually there is it's a very niche role where what your job is essentially is copywriting or creating a strategy to market a sustainable product. And there are other roles, like as I mentioned, I want to go back to supplier engagement for those who have some level of supplier experience working with suppliers around the world. If, there's a lot of roles out there that entails engaging with suppliers, almost like influencing, persuading them to build sustainability programs. So there's a lot of that, especially if you're a large company with a lot of suppliers and you're really reliant on your suppliers to make these changes in order to create your sustainable product. Supplier engagement liaison is another role. I would bucket corporate affairs, stakeholder management into one. Very similar. So anything that has to do with engaging with your stakeholders. If you're, let's say, a mining company or a very extractive company, and you need to continue to have relations, stakeholder relations with the community, there is a role for that as well. In fact, that was one of the first things I did when I went in-house, was a lot of stakeholder relationship management. Um, there's a lot of regulatory analysis. In fact, there was one job I keep seeing on my LinkedIn. It's regulatory analysis from a sustainability point of view. Um, I know it sounds, for some people who are just like, what? I can't believe it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so much regulation on sustainability from the state level point of view, and provincial level view if you're in Canada, for example. So you definitely need a lot more regulatory analysis and compliance, and that's why I have sustainability compliance as the next job there. And then project management, sales. I find that if you're in the sales role and you just simply want to move out of, let's say, sales of a non-sustainability platform to sales of a sustainable platform, it's much easier to make that move because a lot of sustainability platform companies are less interested in your interest in sustainability and more interested in your skill set to be able to sell the product. So this is one of the fastest ways to get into sustainability, is to work. If you're just like, you know what, I'm not sure if I want to retool all my skill sets, I still want to be in the field of sales, you could do that by working for a company that sells a sustainable product. Okay, I'm moving on to my last slide. And so what next? If I could give you homework, here is my homework to you. First, what identify what skills do you have now that you can transfer to a corporate sustainability job. But I would also say, given where the US is right now, I would also say not just transfer. If you're already in a job that you love and you're just super interested in sustainability, how can you turn that job into contributing to making that company you work for more sustainable, right? So that would be my homework for you. What are your hard skills that you can identify and transfer to a CS job? Is it data analysis? Is it project management? Is it finance? Is it coding? What is it? And what are your soft skills? Which, by the way, soft skills here does not mean it is not as great as hard skills. It's just soft skills, meaning communication, project management, the essential life skills, which are also very important, very critical. So are they influencing, communicating, project management? What are they? Everybody has some level of soft skill. I can tell you that because I've heard someone say, I have no soft skills. Please do not say that to the hiring manager at all. Everybody has soft skills. Find out what your strengths are in terms of your soft skills. And then make sure it comes out of your resume and cover letter. My second question is, are there skills that I would like to learn more of to stand out? Remember in my pyramid framework, I had like technical skills and I was like, this one you might need to do a bit more work. So in this situation, and I saw a couple questions about like what courses should we take? Well, my question to you is, what skills do you want to learn? Because I might say carbon accounting is the hottest thing. It probably isn't, but I'm just saying, what if it is? And then suddenly all of you are taking carbon accounting, and then you absolutely hate math. You're going to hate it. So I'm just saying, like, choose something that you're really interested in and it aligns with your skill set. Let's say you're more of a writer, less of a math lover, then go with reporting, right? Like, but let's say you're less of a writer, more of a maths person, go to carbon accounting. So you need to now understand, what skills do I want to learn more to stand out. So here are the four I feel like are the hottest um, skills. If you like technical skills: carbon accounting, supply chain engagement, reporting, sustainable product or packaging design and development. Those are the four. You don't have to choose all four. You can choose one, two. Um, if you're interested in all four because you want to be a generalist, go for it. But those are the four that I want you to kind of have a think about. I would say climate change knowledge alone is not enough. It is important to have it. it is not enough. Passion alone is not enough. I often hear people saying, I'm so passionate about environment, but I can never seem to get a job interview or nobody seems to look at my resume. And I'm going to say it's not enough because you have to tell us what skills you have today. Like, what skills do you have today? What can you offer to this job, right? Identify, make it very clear. And I know in some cases, some people will also ask me, but I don't have any sustainability technical skills. That's fine, but you have soft skills, right? Like you have writing skills. You are able to communicate, you're able to influence. You have, as I said, writing skills, or you have some numerical skills, you have some data analysis skills. Those skills don't have to be obtained or taught or learned in a sustainability role. Like in my case, if I'm hiring, I don't want to have to explain how to analyze data from a basic point of view. Like I'm willing to train someone from a sustainability point of view, but I don't have time to train someone from zero. So at least telling the hiring manager that, hey, I have data analytical skills. And then instead of saying I don't have, because the mind, when you say I don't have something, that's the first thing that some our hiring manager is going to read. They're going to read you don't have. So instead of saying I don't have, you can say I am working on whatever, whatever, whatever. And please be sure you are working on it rather than just saying you are, like you're actually working on it. So like when I teach courses, Merrin and I teach some of these courses. When we teach our students, we simply say, well, you're in the middle of learning about carbon accounting. You can say that. You can say, I am working on X, these skills, right? But also highlight the skills you already have and then talk about the skills you're working on because that shows true passion. True passion is not, I'm passionate for environment and then writing it on your cover letter. To me, words mean nothing. But to actually see, oh, you're doing something about it? That's great. That means you're trainable. That means you have inner motivation, right? Inner motivation to want to learn. That's something a person does either has or doesn't have. I can't teach you to have that motivation. It's intrinsic. And so that one for me as a hiring manager, I'm more interested in your intrinsic motivation than your extrinsic motivation. Anyway, so I'm going to open the floor.
Maybe, Janice, I'll quickly hit a couple of questions in there that might cover a few things. Um, Question about, yeah, Janice and I are very open about connecting up with people on LinkedIn. I would just say that, and the question in there is, can we connect with you in there? Remember though, once I get this, I don't want to have a LinkedIn directory that's just a phone book of people around the world. I want to have something to link to. So if you are connecting out to us, do talk about something, do share something that gives an idea of what you're interested in. Otherwise, I might as well just Google search a name and say I've met them. And that's the kind of part about when you're trying to get a job is what's the thing you're about that the person's going to remember you for so that you spring to mind. So I'm using that as that broader networking thing. Um, there's a range of different questions there in terms of courses and that for those that are doing. I think one thing that I would summarize from a couple of the questions, like I'm in this industry wanting to do that, what degree I want to move into a different one. I mean, the question there is which PhD will I do? Well, Janice has a very different PhD to mine. I'm guessing no one in this call has a PhD in how you do coordinate systems for Google Maps type of thing. Mine's geomatic
You went really niche with that one. That
yeah,
was a
I
rabbit hole.
was so deep. There was only 5 people in the world that weren't in government departments contracting in that space. But what did that job do? It put me in so many different environments around the world. I could see projects that were being poorly designed from an environmental and social aspect. So I took that passion part and worked out how I can get in front of people to change the design of golf courses, roading projects, all of those other things. So seeing the comment, I've been in the Caribbean doing environmental work because after cyclones, I knew about coordinate systems and mapping, which was my base learning. So the biggest thing when people say, hey, I want to get into sustainability, I say to them, what company are you already in? And as Janice mentioned, how do you tweak your current role to allow you to show some of that interest? And it doesn't have to be in your current department. It might be in another part of the organization saying, hey, I'm interested in this. Can I volunteer on that committee? Can I discuss? Can I review that document? from this perspective. Once you're in a company, it's so much easier to make change than when you're the annoying, going back to my earlier point, when you're the annoying, pestering NGO on the outside and you don't understand the business and what the business drivers are to line those up. So again, choose what role you want to play and what your skills are and look for how that sets you up. So hopefully that covers a number of those. Um, Janice, there's
There
a
was a
couple of in the
question on
Q and
AI, I think. Do you want to answer them?
yeah, I was going to say into the Q&A. Are you looking at the Q&A ones rather than the chat?
We could look at the Q&A too.
But of course, I think maybe Tillman's put in the AI.
Yeah.
AI is something that I haven't learned enough of yet, or haven't played around with enough yet. But I come from a background where surveying's a tradition of old equipment. Sometimes you can pull out a ruler, a standard ruler, and measure a distance. You don't need the fanciest tool. So with all of this stuff, what's the most appropriate tool or resource you have available? Are you using a way bigger sledgehammer to do a problem that you should be able to just answer yourself in some ways by a basic measurement or back of envelope calculations? So the thing is, what's the appropriate level of understanding you need for the question you've been asked or the example you're trying to solve? And most of the time, the 80-20 rule will get you going further forward. Don't worry about the 99.9% right and researching too much for some of this. But no, I can't really answer either of the Q and
I
A's because I
I
didn't
have
understand
a
what was
I
being
well,
said.
I would say anything that requires having to analyze so much data points. So I would say the traditional way of doing carbon accounting is probably going to be done by AI eventually. So instead, I would say for those who are getting into carbon accounting, I would suggest probably going into it from a auditing point of view because auditing will be required by states. So California is requiring auditing, so is the EU. And it's just, I can definitely imagine a world where we're auditing our carbon numbers. And so auditing will be less like the bean counter type situation. I think that's going to be AI-fied, if that's a word. So anything that's like very manual from like that can be automated will definitely be sorted out by AI. I would say so what won't be things like environmental impact assessments, like actually going to the site and taking samples, AI cannot do. Second, it's things like analyzing the when you're trying to understand what chemicals need to go into a product and how to take chemicals out of that product. That's not something that AI can do just yet. So if it requires a level of critical thinking or being there in person, right? That type of jobs, those jobs are probably going to be protected from AI for a while. But if it's something that requires such heavy labor and that can be easily automated, will definitely be something that AI might is very, very like they might end up doing that.
Janice, I
Um,
suppose the other part that springs to mind maybe for the course is the
sure.
idea of the structure, how the actual course goes ahead here, in
Yeah.
that we try and give you enough of an introduction to the key components of each phase of doing things or awareness that you can kind of get that gut feel of like, hang on, what I've just been told, that doesn't quite make sense. I need to go and ask someone for more information or check that. So it's not just relying. The problem, with AI, someone still has to check the answer and see whether it makes sense. And that's like whether you've had an intern doing it. Is my way of thinking what old AI was the boss just said, intern, go away and gather all this and come back and report it for me. And then they will go, something's not quite right there. So the actual course we step through is a high level number of bitses that you can then go, I understand that language, what's going on here, the purpose, and then you can find the experts in each of those areas. And that's partly trying to answer. The other part I'll try and do is Tillman's other Q&A he asks is, what is the trend in opportunity growth for international solutions versus within the US? Any advice on navigating shifts here? I would just say, remember, supply chains for every company is international. It's global. I don't think you can find any company that's serious. So when you're looking at growth and changes and that, at the moment, I think the area we're really looking at is what is my impact of what I'm buying or using in my services, where it's coming from in another part of the world. And that um, scope three emissions, I suppose, might summarize it as that it's really tricky. Everyone's got to be doing their part. So don't necessarily have to think outside of a different country. You're very often working internationally, even if you're a small little local company somewhere in the world.
Oh, I know we have a few minutes left. I'm trying to answer Claudia's question. Could you say this for again? I think this is the four, reporting and
I think that
sustainable
was it
product.
too. I was a bit wondering what the question was relating to.
Packaging, design, and development. Okay.
Maybe
Um,
they don't. Maybe they don't have the screen on. They're just on their phone, Janice. So they
okay. Yeah, I've typed it now. So I'm gonna just try to answer the rest. I'm gonna combine some of the questions. Someone was like, "I really love my job. I want to get in banking now, but I want to do an MS in sustainability management." And then someone was like, "What courses should I take? Because I don't know which. I'm not sure which certifications are helpful to which jobs." Actually, there is no particular certification that will just like, if you get a GHG protocol certification, which is a carbon accounting certification, that's like a shoe-in. No, we're not there yet with the industry. So I would simply say I would just say something, and somebody even asked a PhD. Um, I would just say if you're going to do a PhD and a master's with the hope that you can be able to shift into sustainability, that's a big ask. From like I'm going to take masters in the hopes that I can shift in the hopes that I will be able to shift. Maybe that's possible, but that's also not always going to be possible. So I would say I did a PhD for other reasons because I was already in the industry. I would simply say this, right? If you're taking a course in order to break into the industry, maybe think of it this way. Maybe I would say do it in bite sizes, unless you really, really want to do an MBA or a master's in sustainability. I'm not going to stop you. I think it's a great idea, but don't just do it from just because I want to get a job in sustainability. It's not always connect correlated in that. There's some relevant correlation, I guess, but it's not a shoe in. Let's put it that way. What I would say is if you are really like, I want to get into this field, but I'm not so sure if I want to make this investment, because I can sense that's sort of the way the question is asked. I would recommend taking bite-sized programs first, dipping your toes into a shorter program. And most any program is fine. I would just simply say I would highly recommend a program that gives you practical skills rather than just teaching you what time it is on your watch, telling you the time that's on your watch, because you don't need to pay someone to do that. It is more important that you have the skills and some or an understanding of how to do the job. That would be my recommendation for the bite-sized program. And then no shame here. That is the reason why I created my program and the reason I asked Merrin to join me as a co-instructor, because I could not find a program that would just teach people like this is what you need to do if you're in a sustainability role, because I was in a position where I would get people who wanted to transition and didn't know how to do the job. And I was like, I don't have time to teach people how to do the job. I have time to teach them, but I want them to have some level of basic training, what it takes in order to do that job. So that would be my suggestion. But if you want to do a master's or an MBA or a PhD, do it also for because it's an academic thing, an academic exercise, not simply a career exercise. Because if it is simply a career exercise, you may you may not get what you want. That's my only concern. So do it because for other reasons, not just for a career reason. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I'll just add quickly to that. If you are doing that, look for projects that you can go and put into real life with maybe an NGO or volunteer sector or somewhere like that where you can test it in reality. Because remember, by going to the NGO, they know lots of corporates and lots of corporates know them and they're probably coming to you. And so the number of people that come into sustainability roles that have been through NGO spaces from the social and environment, I see quite a funnel of getting your experience that way, the real on the ground issues and how you facilitate with stakeholders and that. So that's one way. Janice, we're basically up to time, aren't we? And I'm just thinking, what are next steps
Yeah.
in talking about the open
Next
house on
steps, I'm just going
Friday?
to end it by yes, if you have any questions, if you are like, feel free to, like, as I said, connect with us on LinkedIn. Um, and I just wanted to end with Rajarshi's question, which is like, how do we go about career transition if we do not have this pre it's just a bit of a chicken and egg situation, right? Like we don't have experience, but how do we get experience? And as I said, when we created our course, when I created my course, this accelerator course, which I believe Lois has provided the information in the chat. Um, we created it with you being able to gain some level of experience. And I use the word experience because you're going to be working through an actual case study of your choosing. So the hope is that you have a portfolio you can show your whoever, like the company you're working for. And we've had a couple of people in the class, in my class, do that. Some have already managed to get into consulting roles. Now, the other way to do that is also to volunteer. So I've had some of my students in the past complete the course and say, I'm going to volunteer with this coffee shop and say, hey, can I do your supply chain sustainability program? That's one way of doing it as well. So there are different ways of doing it. Hopefully it doesn't sound like a chicken and egg situation, but if you kind of just volunteer or say, or even use the portfolio capstone program that we set out, that hopefully should answer at least 30% of the experience question. But I would just say a disclaimer, not fully the 100% experience question. Merrin,
I'm
take
gonna
it away
play.
for us. You're going to
I'm
end
gonna
it for
play
us.
that little bit again though. What and don't take this personally, but notice in the question that was asked there, how do we go about career transition if we do not have this previous experience? I challenge any company that I go into that say, "Oh, we haven't done anything yet." You go, "Rightio, let's find the one thing I have done," because you're always going to have to start from that base of what you've done and build it up. You might be targeting too big a jump at the moment, but if you look at what you have experiences now, sustainability experience, I know what my local recycling system is. I know some of the environmental impacts. I know the social impacts in that. You will know something. Just pull that something out, look at what you have as an experience. And you might, like most of us, we don't often recognize what our experience is. So talk to another mate and say, and they'll say, "Oh, you always do this. You always tell me about this at work situation." Build off that. That's your sustainability experience. No one in this call is on zero, way
Oh,
above
that's a good
zero,
one.
because you're already in this call. So you've, on a global scale of people interested, you're probably at a 50% experience. I don't know what number it is, but it's
You're not at
significant.
zero, definitely.
Exactly. All right. Enough of
Okay.
that. So, but there is further questions for the open house. So is Shark sharing anything for that, or you
Yes.
sharing that,
So
Janice?
if you have any other questions about other stuff about career, but even about the course, we have an open house on Friday. Is that right? On Friday. Lois, you mind adding that to the chat
Yep.
if you can? Okay,
Hmm.
perfect.
Same time as this course started, but on Friday.
Same, yeah, same time. And that will be with Marin, who will give you a bit more info. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop us um, a message on LinkedIn if you have not yet connected with us. Thank you so much, everybody. It was great to meet you. I loved all your questions. Thank you for making me feel a bit better. I appreciated a lot of your comments as well. Thanks, Marin. Thanks, everybody. Bye.